Well, good morning, everyone. My name is David Mattis. I'm the Executive Director of the Southwestern Association of Episcopal Schools. It's such a pleasure to see everybody today. I'm really excited about our hour today. Bill Gordh is going to join us. Many of you have met Bill from other events that we've had in the association, and we're going to have a great hour today talking about Children's Chapel. Few items of housekeeping before we get started. The Q&A box, make sure you identify the Q&A box. It should be at the bottom of your screen. If you're on a phone, it may be at the top. Sometimes it changes location. But let's go ahead and try the Q&A box. If you'll open that up and if you'll type in the name of the city where you're joining us from, we'll know that the Q&A is working. Q&A box will be how you communicate to us, and we're going to make sure we've got plenty of time today to get all those questions answered. And don't wait for a break as soon as a question pops up. As soon as a question pops up, make sure to put it right in the Q&A box, and we'll make sure it gets answered. Okay, so cities are rolling in: Edinburgh, Tyler, Round Rock, Houston, San Antonio. They're all rolling in, so fantastic, and welcome to everybody. There'll be a recording of this event available in the webinar library. You'll need your login credentials to access the webinar library. If you need to recover those or you need assistance in accessing the webinar library, please don't hesitate to call Pat Blevins in our main office, and she'll make sure you get plugged in. Again, don't forget to use the Q&A box. Let us know. One of the things we're really excited about is to have the opportunity today for some give and take and for some exchange between SAES school leaders and Bill Gordh. So that's it for me. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Professional Development, Mary Catherine Duffy.
Good morning, folks. We're glad to have everyone on board today. This is such a great topic and an important topic, and I know we all are constantly looking for assistance and help when it comes to Children's Chapel. I'm delighted to have Bill. Bill is just an award-winning storyteller. He's a songwriter, a curriculum designer. He plays the banjo. He is in his 34th year as the Director of Expressive Arts at the Episcopal School in the city of New York. He leads chapel weekly, as well as storytelling classes in a curriculum that he designed. He's got a couple of books, Building a Children's Chapel, and his latest, Making Room for Everyone, Stories for Building a Children's Chapel. So without further ado, I want to turn it over to Bill, and he's going to lead us through, I think, what is a great and collaborative workshop.
Whenever you put out an extra chair, you're making room for everyone. Whenever I take the time to share, I'm making room for everyone. Whenever we sing another song, whenever we hear and sing along, whenever we say, come on, we're making room for everyone. When you go outside and invite me to, you're making room for everyone. Whenever I do the same for you, I'm making room for everyone. Whenever we call, come out and play, all are welcome every day. Don't think you can? Well, we'll find a way, 'cause we're making room for everyone. 'Cause everyone is loved, and everyone needs love. We all do our part when we open up our hearts. When you give a smile to a frowning face, you're making room for everyone. When I have a treat and I share a taste, I'm making room for everyone. When we move out the tables, shove back the chairs, tell our stories from everywhere, let the world know how much we care, we're making room for everyone. When we move out the tables, shove back the chairs, tell our stories from everywhere, let the world know how much we care, we're making room for everyone. We're making room for everyone. Well, there's a little song, Making Room for Everyone. When I finished writing this book, Making Room for Everyone, I thought, that should have a song. So the song you just heard is actually not in this book, but it kind of captures everything this book is trying to do, which is finding ways to include everybody that are in our group gathered together. Writing this song got me thinking about how creating something with a theme makes you think about it in a different way than singing it or telling a story. So I just got an idea. Look at this song, and we're going to try to right now create a new verse. Now, I'm going to share, well, no, I won't share my screen yet. Let me tell you about that song a little bit. I'll sing you the first verse again. Whenever you put out an extra chair, you're making room for everyone. Whenever I take the time to share, I'm making room for everyone. Whenever we sing another song, whenever we hear and sing along, whenever we say, come on, come on, we're making room for everyone. Now, writing that song, I started thinking, well, first of all, I just started doing a you song. When you do this, when you do this, when you do this. And then I started thinking, well, in a way, that suddenly suggests that the person singing is not the one that needs to do anything. That it's up to all of you out there, and it's not also up to me. So I changed the very beginning. So at first it says, whenever you do something, and then the next line is, whenever I do something. And then I thought, well, we have you, I, and what else do we have? We. And then we come together and we think of things together that we can do. Now, if you sit down with a bunch of kids and you make up a new verse with your children, it's going to be a different experience than just learning the song. I worked on an idea for a while called, and I'm still working on it, an arts approach to biblical literacy. The idea being that if you make art about the themes and ideas that you're working with, that you come to a greater understanding of it than if you just hear it. And so if you write a song, if you make some art, you understand it, and also you understand it in a different way. So on the Q&A, don't throw up, but think of an idea that, like, what's something somebody could do to make everyone feel at home? How can we make room for everyone? Let's see that. I'll write it down and we'll build a little verse together.
Type into the Q&A again.
You can do that, or you can, however you think. Is that a good way to do it?
Absolutely, it's perfect. Yeah, just type into the Q&A something you can do to make people feel at home. Here's one. Offer a new friend a chance to play.
Okay, a chance to play. That's great. Offer a friend. And listen to how that sounds already. Offer a friend a chance to play.
Make sure everyone has a place to sit.
When you offer a friend a chance to play, you're making room for everyone. When I offer someone a place to sit, I'm making room for everyone. When we bump elbows to welcome a friend, I gotta scroll it up. When we ask someone how they're feeling today, we need one more. When we
welcome someone to the lunch table.
Welcome someone to the lunch table. We're making room for everyone. Let me do that verse again. That was very good. When we offer a new friend a chance to play, we're making room for everyone. When we make sure everyone has set place to sit, we're making room for everyone. When we bump elbows to welcome a friend, when we ask how someone's feeling, oh, then it rhymes with friend. That's nice. When we bump elbows to welcome a friend, we ask someone how they're feeling. When we ask someone to sit down for lunch, we're making room for everyone.
Well done.
Very nice. Very nice. So you see, we have this song, and if you get a group of kids to help you make up another verse, you'll sing it differently. And they'll notice how the verse itself, those are working. Now, I did, even though it's not in the book, I have recorded that song, and I have the lyrics to the song, which I sent to Mary Catherine late last night, and we will make that available to you.
Right.
And to let you know in advance, over the past, we've all been, of course, the COVID thing. Well, it has also provided some circumstances to do things we haven't done before. And with this book having come out, I started thinking, how can I help our friends, all of you guys, to work with this book and to work with the ideas? And it occurred to me that maybe it'd be nice for you to be able to see me telling the stories. So some of what I did since last March was that I recorded all 35 stories in Making Room for Everyone. And it is on, all those stories are on the SAES website, and you can access them. And I welcome you to. And I also welcome you to email me. We'll put up my email address, and anytime, because most people don't. So anytime something comes up, email me. Now, we just did a song, and this is about stories too, and telling stories. One of the really tricky things right now, at least from what everybody I've talked to, is what we're doing right now. I am trying to be as present as I can to you, and you're watching on a screen, and I see myself on a screen. But I owe it to me, I owe it to our work, I owe it to you to be as present as I can. And one of the ways we can be present is to talk sincerely, to talk from our hearts, not memorize everything, just talk and be there. This story I'm about to tell you, it seems like it'd be fun to tell a little story that's from the book. There's a story from Scotland, not a Bible story, a story from Scotland. Now, we just celebrated Epiphany. What if you told this story from Scotland? Long ago, God spoke to all the animals. You have had a hard time. You're always hunting or being hunted all the time. But I came to tell you, animals, there's a time of peace. There'll be a night of peace coming. And the animals looked up and they said, how will we know? How will we know? And they heard a song. You'll see a star in the sky. You'll see a star in the sky. Way up high. You'll see a star in the sky. And love will shine down. Love will shine down. The animals were quivering. They were hearing a song from the heavens. They couldn't quite believe it. All they could say was, what? And they heard the song again. You'll see a star in the sky. You'll see a star in the sky. Way up high. You'll see a star in the sky. And love will shine down. Love will shine down. The animals were blessed. Then they went about their lives. And the time went by, and the time went by, and the time went by. And then one night, the wolf woke. She was ready to go hunting. She came out. She looked around and up. She saw the star. She saw the star. She wasn't hungry anymore. Her heart was filled with the love. Well, a rabbit came out, saw the star, looked up the hill, and there was the wolf. But Rabbit knew that Rabbit was safe. Wolf was not gonna eat tonight. And Rabbit hopped up to Wolf and said, "Did you see it?" "Oh, yes, I saw it. Look. Let's tell the others. Let's tell the others." So Rabbit went hopping and hopping and hopping, and Wolf went off running down the hill. "Fox, Fox, did you see the star?" "Lion, Lion, did you see the star?" "Donkey, Donkey, did you see the star?" And they had all seen the star. And they went up the hill. And they sat together. And the stars shone down. And the animals looked down on the little town of Bethlehem. A night of peace. And if there was one night of peace, we know it's possible. And we know it can happen again. And we don't give up hope. We work and work and work. And remember the song. You'll see a star in the sky. You'll see a star in the sky. Way up high. You'll see a star in the sky. And love will shine down. Love will shine down. And there's the story. And I have a video of it on my YouTube channel. And I was going to play that. And then I started thinking, well, wait a minute. If I play that, then I'm somewhat removing myself from you this morning. And so instead, I thought, no, I'll tell it live. Maybe it will feel different. Maybe I'll get different ideas, new ideas. And that is one of the central aspects of the work that I've been developing for a long time, and that is storytelling, of telling the stories, not memorizing the stories, telling the stories. And telling the stories and memorizing the stories is quite dramatically different, because what I find is that when people start memorizing stories for a chapel, a lot of the energy is trying to remember word for word what you're going to say. And if you're not careful, a lot of your time during the chapel is trying to remember the next word or the next thing. And it removes you from the experience of the story itself, which then makes a little block between you and the children that are listening to the story. So, you go, well, I'm not a storyteller. The best way I can do it is memorize it, and then I'll get it, and then it'll be pretty good. That may be, but think about whether you're really a storyteller or not. I think we all are storytellers. For instance, if you go to a movie, once we can go to movies again, if you watch a movie and you talk to a friend who hadn't seen the movie yet, you tell them the story. And how do you do it? Well, if your friend's a really good friend who loves comedies, you spend more time talking about the comedy part of the movie than the sad part. If the friend is somebody who really likes heavy emotion, you end up telling the story in terms of the emotion of the movie. Without even thinking about it, you're showing all these instincts of the storyteller. And that is adjusting the story for who is listening to the story. You know your children, so you adjust the story to the children that are listening. I tell a story differently to 3-year-olds than I do 4-year-olds, and differently to 4-year-olds than 6-year-olds. But all those groups together can hear me tell the same story, but if I'm just with one of those groups, I'll change it a little bit. And why else would you just tell the story instead of memorize it? Well, one reason is, like, for instance, if you make art to go along with the story. What we do at Episcopal School for our chapels is that we have art made for each of the chapels. And the director of the school puts art up on, we have a green board, a felt board. The kids, we give one class each week makes the art. So I give an assignment and I said, for like this story, I would say, I'd give a brief summary of this story. God spoke to the animals and said they had a really hard time, but a night of peace is coming. They just need to look for the star in the sky, and it's on a hill. So what I need for this story is I need a great big star. I could have a hill, that's optional. You can build a hill if you want. And then we need, let's see, wolf. We need a fox, we need a rabbit, we need a lion. We could have a goat or some other animals that the friends love. Making room for everyone, part of the idea of that is that, what if a kid says a sheep? Sheep's a great idea. I hadn't thought of a sheep. Okay, now if one kid or two kids make a sheep, and then I say, then the sheep looked up and saw the star, and this child sees their sheep going up on the board. It changes the story for them. It makes it their story. And part of what we're trying to do with storytelling and with using the art of children is to make the stories theirs. One of the reasons that I built into the story the animals saying, "What?" was so that I could sing the song again. When kids are just listening to a story instead of like looking at a book or hearing a teacher and knowing that the teacher can read it again, is you want to do some repetition. And you can build the repetition in as part of the setting of the story. Let's take another example. What I've been talking about in terms of the stories is to take a story and just get it into its basic parts. I call that the skeleton. So for this story, your skeleton would just be, God spoke to the animals, you've had a hard life, better coming. That's all you put. Spoke to animals, better life coming. Animals, how? God, star in the sky, love will come. So you have little pinpoints, little bullet points that are your outline, basically, the sequence of the story. And then you use your language from there. Now, that's a little plug for storytelling. You start with a little bit and you keep going because you tell stories all the time, automatically. And this gets more fun. In the book, what I did was it has the story full out, and then I do a skeleton of the story so that it gives you a little outline. So you can print that down, you can put it down in front of you, and you have the little your cues for telling the stories. Some people use the cue of the sequence of the characters being put up on the board. Now, another really important part of what we're exploring now, this making room for everyone, part of the idea of this is to use stories from all different cultures. And this, without saying it, and you can say it too, is that we learn from everywhere. And part of our chapel time together is to learn from everywhere and how different things happen, different places, and they express it. You've picked the stories that go right along with what your chapels are expressing for your school. So, for instance, let's take an idea, a theme. We'll take a theme. The theme might be getting things done. We want to make some changes. We want to get things done. How can we do that? With stories. Well, our Episcopal chapel, still, its baseline of chapels is Bible stories, and we keep using those. And they get richer because you hear another story that makes that story make more sense. You're not taking away from the Bible stories by telling other stories. They only speak to each other. Getting things done. Well, Jesus has decided to go out and he's got to go out into the world. And so Mary and Joseph said, you got a great big job and a working plan, and you'll need some help to do it. You need some help to do it. Oh, I never thought about that. I need some help? That's a good idea. I was thinking I'd just do it by myself. So Jesus walked and walked and walked until he came to the sea. And there were some people fishing in the boat. But when they saw Jesus, they came to the shore and they asked what he was doing. And he said, I'm going out in the world and I'm talking to everybody about taking care of each other and how everyone in the world is loved. And that love goes on forever and ever and ever and ever. And we need to be good neighbors and make the world a more peaceful place. That's what I'm going to go out and do. I've got a great big job and a working plan. I need some help to do it. So won't you come with me? Won't you come with me? And so the four say, we would love. You can count us in. Excellent. So let's count. So the kids would have made 4 helpers. So we count them. 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 4. We could use some more. And the story goes on until we get all 12. And then the 12, we got a great big job and a working plan. Together we can do it. Together we can do it. I'm not speaking too well. Together we can do it. And so, that's one of the stories in my earlier book, which many of you have, that NAAS actually gave to all member schools, Building a Children's Chapel. That story's in there. And in fact, I've now started recording all those stories too, so that you can get to them. And they also will be on the website. Now, the new book takes the themes from Building a Children's Chapel and puts folk tales in there. And so, if you looked up a song like Together We Can Do It, Jesus gathering the disciples, what other stories might we tell about working on something together? And one came to mind. From Africa, Southern Africa. You see, there was a fire. Antelope smelled it first. Fire! Run! Rhinoceros smelled of smoke. Fire! Run! Lion, cheetah, run! The birds smelled it. Fly! Flap, 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 flap. Zebra, run! All the animals running, running, running from the fire. The tall grass was burning, the tall grass was burning, 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 to the edge of the forest, where they were safe, watching the fire burning the tall grass. Oh no. What was that? They looked up. Wait, what was that? What was that? What was that? And they looked. It was a little hummingbird. the hummingbird was flying over to a little spring and dipping its tiny beak, and then flying over the fire and emptying its beak onto the fire, the little drips of water, and back again and back again and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And they said, wait, hummingbird, what in the world are you doing? And hummingbird said, I'm doing what I can. That's all that I can do to make this world a better place for me and you. So the little hummingbird was doing what she could to make the world a better place. That is one way to work towards the world, each of us individually. And there are other ways too. Well, that reminds me of a story from China. And there was an old man that lived in the shadow of a mountain. He grew up in the shadow of a mountain. He raised his kids in the shadow of the mountain. He was 93 years old, and he said, I don't want to live in the shadow of the mountain anymore. I know. I'm going to move the mountain. And so the old man, 93-year-old man, got his bucket and his shovel, and he walked up the mountain, and he filled up his bucket, and he walked down the mountain, and he dumped it. Then he walked up the mountain, and he filled another bucket, and he walked down the mountain, and he dumped it. Then he walked up the mountain, and he filled another bucket, and he walked down the mountain, and he dumped it. Then he walked up the mountain, and he filled another bucket, and dumped it. And he walked down the mountain, and he dumped it. Day after day after day after day, and one day his granddaughter and his grandson followed him up the mountain, and they said, Grandpa, don't you see? You are so old. It's not gonna work. And Grandpa said, well, it may be true that it won't in my lifetime, but if my children and the children's children and the children's children, generation after generation, keep the work going, one day our family will not live in the shadow of a mountain. And so sometimes change happens slowly over generation after generation after generation. And with Martin Luther King's time coming up, we can kind of think of that story, I think. Sometimes when we say, well, we haven't gotten so far since the days of Martin Luther King, it's taking longer. And that story kind of rings with that. In fact, I'm going to be telling that story at the Trinity School in Upper West Side of Manhattan. I'm now a consultant for their lower school chapel. I'm going to tell that story as a follow-up on the Martin Luther King chapel. But there's yet another story, a story from India. What's this one about, making change? Well, there are a bunch of birds in a bush. And here comes a hunter with a net. And she throws the net over top of the birds. And one of the little birds said, don't worry, I'll lead the way. Here we go. Thwink! And bumped into the net, flopped back in. That didn't work. Another bird said, no, I can do it just perfectly. I got a really sharp beak. Up there. Bounced back down. No, I can do it. Thwink! Oh, that didn't work. I can do it. No, that didn't work. I can do it. Thwink! Oh, that didn't work. I can do it. They all stopped. They all looked at each other. And sometimes this happens. They all had the same idea at the same time. And they all together started flapping their wings. And all those little birds together flew up and lifted the net up into the air. And then they flew over and they flipped upside down, and the net flopped down to the ground, and the birds flew away together. So there are 3, 4, counting Jesus, getting his disciples, ways of thinking about making changes. And they are enriched by each other. And that's kind of the idea. And another part of this idea of making room for everyone is that if you have an Indian child in your school and they hear a story from India, how do they feel? If you have Mexican children in your school and they hear a story from Mexico, how do they feel? Or for that matter, if the children in your school, if they don't have that, when they meet someone of another culture, they can say, oh, I know one of your stories. I know one of your stories, and it's one of my favorites. So that's a little bit. I'm trying a few stories and things. I've been working on this a long time, and I find that kids hang on to these stories. They remember them for a long time. I think we'll move to some Q&A. I could kind of go on forever, but maybe that's the way to go. Yes?
You bet, Bill. I wanted to make a few comments before we dive in. First, first, I put the link to the website in the chat. So if you're interested in seeing where on our website you can access the videos that Bill mentioned, just go to chat and click that link you on the website where you can access that. Second thing I wanted to observe was just, I love how your work takes seriously student agency in worship. You make sure that the kids are an active participant and are playing a role, as opposed to chapel being just a performance, if that makes sense.
Right.
And I love that. And I think that really that's the direction that if heads are thinking about where should we start with chapel design, I think you really start with, well, is it interactive? Do the kids have agency in what's going on here? One of the things I love is when you hold the songbook up and the kids get to choose a song. Yeah, I love that. And that's a great way to build in some agency in an easy way. So I absolutely love that. I wanted to throw a question out to you because I get this question a lot. Well, this is great, but I don't play a musical instrument. And so I wanted to say my cheat for that is every single one of us can order a tambourine off Amazon. And the song that we did initially, Making Room for Everyone, I mean, I don't play banjo, but there's absolutely no reason why any of us couldn't do that with a tambourine, right? Or anything, really.
Right. Or shakers, those egg shakers.
Yeah. Or your thighs.
Right.
When I go outside can you hear that? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Whenever you put out an extra chair, you're making room for everyone. Whenever I take the time to share, I'm making room for everyone. And in fact, anytime that you actually do one of those clapping or thigh thing, the kids can join you. That's what's nice about that.
Yeah, Bill, one of the things that I was thinking about I was thinking about as you were doing this, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I was mesmerized. Like I found myself kind of with my mouth open. So I had to like stop my video so that I wouldn't be like, but I think what I'm saying is that if I am mesmerized, imagine what the power of storytelling can be for kids, because truthfully, that's what we're hoping to do in schools, in early literacy or whatever. Why not translate that into children's chapel? And that makes for chapel to be the thing that kids want to do the most. So I love it. And the other thing that I'm gonna say, and maybe you can speak to, because I led children's chapel for years at my school, and I don't play an instrument. I mean, I can play piano. I can play Joy to the World on the piano, but that's about it. But I sang a cappella, and I'm not saying it was good by any means. I'm not going to tell you that I'm a great singer, but the reality is, as if we are leading children's chapel, I think we have to just be willing to put our own pride aside and do the work of singing. And I don't think kids care. What do you think about that?
I think the point is that it's you.
Yeah.
Your presence presence is the key. And that's part of the thing about telling a story or singing a song, is that your presence. And in fact, this is so odd. Yeah, of course, as always, and we tested before we started, I was going to pull up other things that were videos and stuff like that. And it just started feeling like this would be more present to the people here. Because I think also one of the really tricky things now is a lot of us are doing virtual chapels. And it's easy to accidentally make it more formal than it was before.
Right.
Because you suddenly make it more official, and it's got to be just right because we're videoing it and we're doing it 2 days before, and suddenly the life of it gets stiffer rather than the other way around. And I think we need to actively work on being present to, even if we're just videoing, is like, imagine the kids being there. Like, pick a kid in your head and think of how they're going to react when you say this, and so that you can add your humor to it, or you can add this, or your feelings. Because many of the chapels that I've seen, number of ones, people have stiffened up their chapels, and it makes it less accessible to the kids rather than more. It makes it official, but it less meaningful, at least in my mind. And I know for us, last spring when we went virtual, we did it live, but we couldn't let the kids pick the songs like David was talking about. We always had the kids hold up the book and pick the songs. We couldn't do that because we couldn't see them, just like we can't see you guys watching now. And we didn't have the children's art, which always supported the stories. So this summer, when we were deciding what to do about chapel, because at our school, the kids are coming to class, but we can't have chapel because our chapels have the parents and kids both, and we can't have everybody in a big space. And this summer, at the end of the summer, we decided to video our chapel so the families could watch it together at home. We decided that was more important to us. And a class was assigned to make the artwork, and we do it a week ahead of time. That class gets to pick the sing-along songs.
Nice.
That start the program. So once again, we get to say at the top, thank you, Group 6, for the songs we get to sing today.
Right.
And they did the song, and then they see their art supporting the thing. It's not quite what you were talking about, but it is speaking to the importance of presence and that storytelling does that.
Yeah. So, Bill, we have a question from McClay Martinez, who's in San Antonio. If we're doing chapel in person, which a lot of the schools in Texas are doing some version of in-person chapel where they're socially distanced. What are your thoughts around the singing with the children in chapel regarding COVID? The singing seems to have been an issue.
Yeah.
I don't know what your thoughts are about that.
At our school, the children are wearing masks at school. Are your children wearing masks?
Yeah, McClay, if you could let us know if your children are wearing masks. What I'm seeing when I see pictures is that even when they're in chapel, they're wearing masks. So I think that is happening. I'm not sure if it is. McClay can maybe let us know whether that's happening or not. But I would say most of them are wearing masks most of the day.
Because if they are wearing masks, I think they can sing.
Okay. I would think there would be something around that. Yeah.
And that it's better, it's obviously better if the children can sing. I mean, it's tricky. Again,
yes, they are wearing masks, she says.
They are wearing masks. But I would think then they could sing. You might want to, choose songs that aren't quite the blasty Joshua and Jericho, or those kind of. You might pick kind of less, those kind of songs. That might be a way to do it. And you also might have your chapel be a little shorter.
Right. Well, and I would think like if you're in a big enough space, I know that we used to do chapel in the sanctuary, so you could spread out enough that you were at least 6 to 8, 10 feet away from each other. And if you're wearing masks and doing that, I would think that would be, it would keep everyone fairly safe. Yeah.
But that question has to do with the space.
Yeah, I would think so.
I think part of the distancing is a tricky thing too, in that chapel is also built to build community, and so when everybody's having to sit further apart, sometimes I think you can try moments of silence or quiet that you then suggest how we're together in this space and how we're sharing this space, and that becomes the surround or the hug of the community, rather than it's so easy to get kind of caught into like, oh no, everybody's so far apart. There are the notion of sanctuary in that way, of that, we are held, like
Right.
the love of the light. We're all held by that. And I think perhaps that might be a way to enhance our togetherness in a time when we're having to physically be further apart.
Bill, can you tell us more about the decision process that your school went through, where you decided to record chapel so that chapel could be enjoyed by the family as opposed to in person? I'd love to hear more about how y'all reached that decision.
Well, first, so in the spring, when of course at that point everybody kept hoping we'd be coming back to school, so we kept hoping that it was just a temporary. So at that point, we felt, to start with, since we had just closed school in late March or early April, really, we felt it was important to have the continuity of chapel at the same time as it always was. Then everybody was at home, so we still had it. We have our chapels. We have morning and afternoon sessions. So we had our 8:30 chapel and our 12:30 chapel on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and so we kept it just like that. When we decided that we could have children back in the school, it was decided that no parents, and that's how we're still doing it, no parents come in the school. No one comes in the school except for the kids and the teachers. So that meant, and I don't know if you guys know, a central part of our chapel is that it's parents and child together. That's part of the core of our chapel, with the belief that parents hear the stories through their children and children hear it through their parents, and so both gain a lot by sitting together and hearing the stories and singing them together. So we decided then that, because our option then was going to be, we could do chapel, but it would have to be zoomed up to the different classrooms. The other option was that we could have it live and try to do it at home before they came to school. But what we've had to do is we've had to vary the entrances, so people some kids come at 8:15, some kids at 8:25 to cut down on numbers. So at that point, the choice was between having chapel zoomed up to the kids and the kids just having chapel with their teachers and not with their parents. And we decided that, and we couldn't, because once school started, we couldn't really do it live because it had to be when they could watch it. So it made sense to video it for them to then watch it. But then I made a special video that went home to all the parents that said, this is what we've decided, and it's really up to you to make it as special as it is when we're at school. So just like I say to you when you come to chapel is, do it together. put aside your cell phone
Right.
and say to your child, we're having chapel together, and try to make it the same time every week. It doesn't have to be the time we proposed, but make it part of your life. And so that's what kind of went out.
Wednesday before dinner or
Right.
something
Yeah,
like that.
whatever. Because we also had on our website, we recorded all the songs, so that if they couldn't remember the songs, they could go to the website and listen to the songs from our songbook. So they have that as an access as well, and then they can sing along.
How has the parent feedback been?
Very good. Truthfully, we're sure, many fewer watch it, and at the same time, should I show them that picture I showed you?
Yes,
I
yes,
love
show
that.
them that. It's so precious.
A mom sent this picture of her son, and they had already watched the chapel. He was watching it again. And this chapel that I'm about to show you a picture of was the opening chapel of the year. And this child, that's his first chapel. This kid was a first time at Episcopal kid. And at this creation story, I say to them, and everything was dark. Just imagine, well, close your eyes. And okay, it's even darker than that. Close your eyes and put your hands over your eyes and see how dark it is. It was even darker than that. Just imagine, with your eyes closed, your hands over your eyes, and you're in your closet with a coat over your head. It was even darker than that. So the mom sent this picture. And as you
I
can
love
see,
that.
there he is with his hands over his eyes. This is a 3-year-old boy. And a thing we learned from it was, you can see I'm up in the left corner telling the story. The director of the school is next to me, and you see there's a board there. She is about to put, for day 1, there's nothing there. And so she will put the art that Group 8 made of the land and the mountains. But here's the music teacher and the creative movement teacher. They all have their hands over their eyes. So that's another thing that we've really been exploring, is how we can make it as vital for all the kids watching as we can. And again, trying to be present, making it as much presence as we can.
Bill, what I love about that whole process of saying to parents, we're all so isolated, and especially when one of the hallmarks I think of an Episcopal school is the community that we build together. And what you're doing when you're creating the chapel in that way, and you're telling the story to both the parent and the child, you're just continuing to reinforce that community feel and that family dynamic that is missing, quite frankly, in a regular year, but really struggling in a year of isolation. So I love that. I think that's amazing.
I think it's a profound thing. And I will say that parents over the years, I've had businessmen come up and say, I moved my business trip a day so I wouldn't miss chapel.
I used to have dads all the time that they couldn't wait to get to chapel.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when we celebrated our 50th anniversary of our school, the director of development said, Bill, would you mind doing like some children's chapels, kind of as a celebration? I said, I don't, we're early childhood. I don't think old alumni and their parents are going to want to come back and, sure, I'll do it if you want. 500 people wrote back they wanted to come to chapels. And we ended up having to do 7 or 8 chapels, in early evenings to
That's
So
amazing.
it's thrilling, but it does suggest that even in, I love early childhood, that early childhood is a profound time for children, for the families, and we have the opportunity to do some very, I hope and I believe, very important work.
Awesome.
So we're coming up towards the top of the hour. So last call, if there's any other questions or comments, if participants will enter those. As we're starting to wrap up, just a reminder again, in the chat, you'll find a link to the page on our website that has Bill's resources as well as links for the books. The books are awesome. And if
Really?
you don't have those, I really recommend you get your hands on them because they're such great resources. Mary Catherine, before we wrap up, any final thoughts?
No, I just want to say thank you to Bill. I just really, I think that what you're doing is incredible. And I will tell you that having been in a school where it's sometimes easier to do elementary school chapel, these kinds of songs and stories and understanding how to do chapel through story, I think that's incredible. And I think the more you can give us around this, the better. So I just want to say thank you personally. I loved it. I thought it was awesome.
Thank
We
you.
had a comment from one participant that said, "Thank you. I really, really needed this," and I feel uplifted as well.
I agree.
Here's another comment: "The theme of unity and culture is wonderful. Thank you so much, Bill, for this workshop. You moved me and blessed my day."
Wow. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Bill's also put his email in the chat. So I was going to ask Bill, that's probably the best way for folks if they want to get a hold of you and maybe have some additional conversation?
Sure.
Well, fantastic. Well, we're coming up to the top of the hour. So Bill, thank you so much for sharing your gifts and your talent.
Well done
With us. Such a fun hour. And thank you to all of our participants. We're not going to run away, but I'm going to stop the recording. And thank you all so much for being with us today.